The evening had a gentle calmness to it. Outside, the streets were quiet, and the last traces of sunlight spilled softly through the windows of the community hall. Inside, the air was warm, carrying the faint smell of polished wood and the soft resonance of piano notes that lingered from earlier lessons. The room was simple, almost modest, but it held a certain charm. It was a place where music lived, where it whispered stories of hope, dreams, and quiet courage. At the center of it all sat the piano teacher, someone who had spent years dedicating life to music. They had a calm presence, always patient, always attentive. There was a gentle intensity in their eyes, the kind that showed they listened not just with their ears, but with their heart. Each evening, students would come and go, some excited, some hesitant, each carrying a little piece of their own world into the room. On this particular evening, as the teacher was straightening sheet music, the door opened slowly. A young student stepped in, clutching a small notebook of music sheets. There was a subtle nervousness in the way they held the papers and the way they hesitated at the doorway. The teacher noticed immediately, offering a warm, reassuring smile. "Hello," the teacher said softly. "Come in. Are you ready for your lesson?" The student nodded, though the motion was almost shy. They walked to the piano and sat down, hands fidgeting slightly on the keys. The room fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the soft rustle of the music sheets. The teacher waited patiently, sensing there was something more on the student's mind. After a moment, the student cleared their throat, a faint blush rising on their cheeks. I was wondering," they began, voice barely above a whisper. "Could you help me play a small tune for the community event this weekend? It's not much, just something short." The teacher tilted their head slightly, intrigued. "A short tune? Of course, tell me more about it." The student opened the notebook, revealing the notes of a simple melody. It was not complicated, perhaps even humble in its simplicity, yet there was something earnest in the way the student held it, a sense that this little tune meant more than just notes on a page. The teacher could feel it, a quiet spark that suggested there was potential for something deeper. "All right," the teacher said warmly, sitting beside the student. "Let's see what we can do together." The first attempts were tentative. The student's fingers hesitated over the keys, unsure, almost afraid to make a mistake. The teacher guided them gently, showing how to bring out the soft, hidden emotions in the notes. They suggested small changes in tempo, slight pauses, tiny variations that made the melody breathe. The student listened intently, nodding and trying again, their confidence slowly growing. As the evening progressed, a quiet magic began to fill the room. The simple tune started to feel alive. Each note carried more emotion, each pause created space for the heart to speak. The teacher watched, fascinated, as the student's nervousness transformed into a quiet determination. There was a glow in the student's eyes, the kind that comes when someone discovers a hidden strength within themselves. During a short break, the teacher leaned back and watched the student rest their hands on the keys. Eyes closed, imagining the melody flowing through the air. "You know," the teacher said softly, "sometimes even the smallest tunes can touch the hearts of many. You don't need to play a grand symphony, just play from here." They tapped gently on their chest, and the rest will follow. The student opened their eyes, a small smile forming. I hope people like it," they said quietly. "They will," the teacher assured them. "It's not about liking or not liking. It's about feeling. If you feel it, others will feel it too." They returned to the piano and tried the tune again, this time with more confidence. The melody seemed to grow naturally, expanding beyond the written notes. The teacher added a gentle harmony here, a soft chord there, subtly weaving depth into the simplicity. The student listened carefully, then tried to replicate it, their fingers moving more fluidly, more freely. Minutes turned into hours, yet the room did not feel long. The music carried them along, a quiet journey of discovery. Each time they played, the tune felt a little more complete, a little more alive. The teacher noticed small details in the students' touch, how they lingered on certain notes, how their expression changed with the rhythm. It was a delicate, unfolding story, a dance between the teacher's guidance and the student's heart. Outside, the world continued on its quiet pace, but inside the hall, time seemed to bend. The melody, simple as it was, began to carry weight and meaning. The teacher realized that what started as a humble request had already begun to transform into something remarkable. The student was not just learning to play. They were discovering a voice, a way to speak without words. By the end of the evening, the student sat back, hands resting on their lap, eyes bright with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The teacher smiled, proud and moved. "That was wonderful," they said softly. "You've done more than I expected. This tune, it's becoming something special." The student looked at the sheet music, then at the teacher. "Really? It doesn't feel special," they admitted. Sometimes the teacher replied, "You don't feel the full power of what you create. Others do. And this melody has a quiet power. You've put yourself into it, and that is always remarkable." They carefully packed the music sheets, the student's hands trembling slightly, but with a newfound confidence. The small request that had seemed so simple now felt like the start of an important journey. Neither the student nor the teacher could know how far it would go or how it might touch the hearts of those who heard it. All they knew was that, in that small hall, something meaningful had begun. The hall emptied slowly, leaving the piano alone in the fading light. The teacher lingered for a moment, fingers brushing lightly over the keys, imagining the melody growing, evolving, spreading quietly into the world. Outside, the night deepened, and stars began to shine. Inside, the music stayed, soft and warm, promise of the unfolding story yet to come. The teacher turned off the lights and stepped out, locking the door behind them. The student walked home slowly, humming the tune under their breath, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement for the weekend. They had come with a small request, thinking it was just a simple favor. Now they carried a seed of something much bigger, a quiet hope that their music could reach beyond themselves. And in the quiet of that night, both teacher and student rested with a shared understanding. This small tune, born from a simple request, had begun to grow into something unforgettable. It was the start of a journey neither of them could yet imagine, a journey that would teach them about courage, patience, and the magic of music that speaks when words cannot. The melody would wait patiently in their minds and hearts, ready to bloom, and with it, a story that would touch many, all starting from one small, sincere request. The next day arrived with the gentle sunlight that filtered through the windows of the community hall. The air was filled with a calm anticipation, a quiet promise of what could be. The teacher was already there, arranging the piano bench and straightening the music sheets. Every evening had its own rhythm, but today felt different. There was a small excitement in the air, almost like a secret, that both the teacher and the student shared without words. When the student arrived, they walked in more confidently than the day before. Their steps were lighter, their posture more assured. They greeted the teacher with a soft smile, and the teacher returned it warmly. There was no need for many words. They both understood that this was no longer just a lesson. It was becoming a journey, a shared adventure into music that neither of them had fully imagined. They sat at the piano, and the student played the simple tune from yesterday. It sounded smoother now, each note finding its place more naturally. The teacher listened carefully, then suggested a subtle change in the rhythm. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it made the melody flow with more ease. The student tried it, their fingers dancing over the keys with a new confidence. Sound was alive, carrying a warmth that had not been there before. As they worked, the teacher encouraged the student to express the feelings behind the notes. "Think about the story you want to tell," the teacher said gently. "Music is like a conversation. You speak, the piano answers. Let it feel like a dialogue, not just a performance." The student closed their eyes and imagined a scene, a quiet park in the early morning. Sunlight filtering through leaves, birds singing softly. The melody began to change subtly, reflecting that peaceful moment. The teacher added a soft harmony. In the background, gentle chords that seemed to support the student's expression. The two of them moved together, teacher and student, creating a sound that felt natural and heartfelt. Hours passed, though it felt like only minutes. They experimented with pauses, with dynamics, with small variations that added depth. Revealed a new layer of the tune, something that had been hidden beneath the simple notes. The students' confidence grew, and so did their sense of purpose. They realized that the music was no longer just a small request. It had become a chance to communicate something meaningful, something that could touch hearts. At one point, the student hesitated, a shadow of doubt crossing their face. "I'm not sure I can make it sound good for the event," they admitted quietly. The teacher smiled reassuringly. "It doesn't have to be perfect," they said. "Perfect is not what moves people. Honest feeling is. If you play from here," the teacher tapped gently on the chest, "you will be heard." The student nodded, taking a deep breath. They played again, this time with more emotion, letting the notes rise and fall naturally. The melody seemed to respond, to grow, as if it understood the feelings behind it. The teacher added soft touches, guiding the harmonies, but letting the students' expression shine through. Together, they created a piece that was richer, fuller, and more beautiful than either of them had expected. During a short break, they sat side by side on the piano bench, reflecting on the progress. "It's amazing how much can come from such a simple idea," the teacher said thoughtfully. "Sometimes, the smallest beginnings hold the greatest potential." The students smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I never imagined it could sound like this," they admitted. "It feels alive." "That's exactly it," the teacher replied. "Music has a life of its own. When you let it breathe, it can grow in ways you don't expect." They returned to the piano, trying new variations and subtle changes. Each time, the students playing became more confident, more expressive. They experimented with timing, allowing certain notes to linger longer, giving the melody space to resonate. The teacher guided them gently, suggesting small harmonic shifts and soft transitions that enhanced the emotional impact. By the end of the session, the simple tune had transformed. It was no longer just a short request for a community event. It had become a musical conversation, a story told through keys and chords. The student had discovered a new way to express themselves, a voice that was uniquely their own. The teacher felt a quiet pride, not just in the student's progress, but in the shared creation that had taken shape before them as the student packed up their music sheets. They looked at the teacher with a mix of excitement and wonder. "I can't wait to play it at the event," they said softly. "I hope people will feel it the way I do." "They will," the teacher assured them. "Music has a way of reaching hearts when words cannot. Just be honest, and the rest will follow." The student left the hall with a light step, humming the melody under their breath. They felt a quiet thrill, knowing that their small request had started something much bigger than they had imagined. The tune was no longer just notes on paper. It had become a living, breathing story, ready to touch others in ways they could not yet see. The teacher lingered behind, fingers resting lightly on the piano keys. They played a few chords, letting the music fill the empty hall, imagining the melody growing and evolving as it traveled beyond the walls. They thought about the journey ahead, knowing that the next few days would be full of discovery, challenges, and moments of unexpected joy. The seed of a small request had already begun to blossom into something extraordinary outside. The sun continued to rise, casting a warm glow over the quiet streets. The community hall sat peacefully, holding within it the echoes of a melody that had started small, but promised to leave a lasting impression. And inside, both teacher and student carried the same quiet hope that their music would touch hearts, inspire courage, and become a memorable part of something bigger than themselves. The days that followed were filled with practice, discovery, and small victories. Each time the student arrived at the community hall, there was a quiet sense of anticipation. The piano seemed to wait for them, ready to sing with every touch of the keys. The teacher watched with gentle pride as the student's confidence grew. Each note played felt more natural, more expressive, as if the music itself had found a voice within the student. Yet, even as progress was made, doubt began to creep in. The student started to worry about the upcoming event, imagining the crowded room, the eyes of the audience, the weight of expectation. They began to question whether the melody, simple as it was, would have any impact at all. The teacher noticed the hesitation, the subtle tension in the student's posture. the way their fingers trembled slightly over the keys. "Are you worried?" the teacher asked one evening, their voice gentle. The student nodded. "I keep thinking, what if it's not enough? What if it doesn't feel special to anyone else?" The teacher smiled knowingly. "Do you remember what I said before? It's not about being perfect or impressive. Music is about honesty. If you play from here," the teacher tapped lightly on their chest, "the rest will follow. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on these keys. You just need to let your heart speak." The student took a deep breath and nodded, trying to calm the rising anxiety. They sat down at the piano and began to play the tune, slowly, thoughtfully. The first few notes were tentative, unsure, but as they continued, something changed. The melody seemed to respond to their feelings, growing stronger, more alive. The teacher added soft harmonies, gentle support that allowed the student's expression to shine. Together, they created a delicate balance between guidance and personal voice. During another practice session, a small accident happened. The student stumbled over a sequence of notes, hitting a wrong key. They froze, embarrassed, and their face flushed with frustration. "I can't do this," they muttered, almost to themselves. The teacher shook their head, smiling softly. "Mistakes are part of the journey. Every great performance has them. What matters is how you respond. Take a deep breath, feel the music, and continue. The beauty is in how you recover, in how you keep moving forward." The student took a moment, inhaling deeply, then tried again. This time, they played the same sequence, but with a subtle change. A slight variation that made the melody smoother and more expressive. The teacher nodded approvingly. "See, sometimes a mistake can lead to something even better than before." As the days passed, the student and teacher explored more ways to bring depth to the tune. They experimented with dynamics, letting some notes linger while others moved quickly, creating a natural ebb and flow. They explored emotion, allowing sadness, joy, hope, and calm to weave through the melody. Each session became an adventure, a journey into the subtle power of music. One afternoon, the student paused mid-practice and looked at the teacher. "I feel like I can almost hear the story behind the notes, but I'm scared I won't be able to tell it properly to others." The teacher nodded, understanding perfectly. "The story doesn't belong to the audience. It belongs to you. When you tell it honestly, they will feel it. Even if it's just a whisper, it can reach hearts. Trust yourself. Trust the music." With that reassurance, the student returned to the piano, playing with renewed focus. The melody flowed effortlessly, subtle harmonies rising and falling naturally. The teacher suggested soft additions here and there, but mostly they listened, allowing the student's expression to take center stage. There was a rhythm between them, a silent understanding, as the music unfolded. During one particularly quiet evening, the student discovered a new way to interpret a section of the tune. They allowed a long pause, letting the sound hang in the air, creating a moment of stillness that resonated deeply. The teacher's eyes brightened, impressed by the emotional depth. "That pause," the teacher said softly, "gives the melody space to breathe. It tells a story without words." The student smiled, feeling a small surge of pride. "It feels different, but right," they said. "Yes," the teacher agreed. "Sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones that let others fill in the spaces." Music is a conversation, remember? Despite the growing confidence, the students still faced moments of doubt. They imagined the audience at the event, wondering if the small tune would matter. Each practice session became a balancing act between excitement and anxiety. The teacher guided them with patience, reminding them that the power of music came not from complexity, but from honesty and feeling. One day, after a long practice, the teacher suggested they record a practice session. "Hearing yourself from outside can give you perspective," the teacher explained. They set up a small recorder and played the piece together. When they listened back, the student was amazed. The melody, simple as it was, had depth and emotion that touched even their own heart. They realized that their small tune had begun to transform into something extraordinary. "You hear that?" the teacher asked gently. That is the beauty of your music. It speaks even when you doubt yourself. The student nodded, feeling a quiet confidence building. I think I can do this. I can share it at the event. The teacher smiled warmly. I know you can. And remember, the most important thing is not how people react, but the honesty you bring. That is what makes music unforgettable. As the event approached, practice sessions became more focused. They worked on refining the melody, exploring subtle variations, and strengthening the students' emotional connection to the tune. Every session revealed new possibilities, new layers of expression that made the music richer and more compelling. By the end of the week, the student felt ready. The small tune, once a simple request, had grown into a musical masterpiece filled with depth, emotion, and life. They carried it in their heart as they walked to the community hall for the final rehearsal before the event. The teacher was there, as always, calm and supportive, ready to guide but never to overshadow. They sat at the piano, hands hovering above the keys, and for a moment there was silence. Then the student began to play. The notes flowed naturally, carrying emotion, rhythm, and feeling. The teacher added soft harmonies, subtle yet powerful, complementing the melody without taking attention away from the student's expression. The music filled the hall, a gentle, living story that grew with each note when the final note lingered in the air. Both teacher and student sat in quiet reflection. The journey had been long, filled with moments of doubt, struggle, discovery, and triumph. The simple tune had evolved into something unforgettable, testament to the power of patience, guidance, and honest expression. The student looked at the teacher, eyes shining with a mix of relief and pride. It feels ready, they whispered. It is ready, the teacher confirmed softly. And you are ready. Remember, this is your story. The music carries your heart, and that is what will touch others. As they packed up their music sheets and prepared to leave, the student felt a quiet excitement for the upcoming event. The melody, once a small request, had become a bridge to others, a way to share emotion, courage, and hope. Both teacher and student knew that this was only the beginning, that the journey of the tune and the journey of the student were intertwined, and that the music would continue to grow in ways they could not yet imagine. The day of the community event arrived. Carrying with it a sense of excitement and gentle nerves, the hall was filled with friends, neighbors, and familiar faces from the local community. Tables were arranged neatly, chairs lined up, and soft decorations added warmth to the space. The air carried quiet anticipation, conversations mingling with laughter and the occasional clink of cups. It was a small gathering, but the atmosphere was alive with energy, each person unaware that they were about to witness something extraordinary. Backstage, the students sat at the piano, their fingers lightly resting on the keys. They took deep breaths, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Their heart pounded, each beat echoing the importance of the moment. The teacher stood beside them, calm and reassuring, offering a gentle nod. Remember, the teacher said softly, play from your heart. That is what matters most. The student nodded, closing their eyes for a moment to center themselves. They imagined the journey that had brought them here. The quiet evenings of practice, small discoveries, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs over uncertainty. All of it had led to this very moment. They opened their eyes, and with a quiet determination, they began to play. The first notes filled the room, soft and tentative, drawing the attention of the audience. At first, the melody seemed simple, almost fragile, but there was a subtle beauty that resonated immediately. The audience grew quiet, leaning in, sensing something special in the air. The student continued, each note gaining confidence, each chord carrying emotion. The melody began to flow naturally, telling a story without words. A story that touched hearts in its honesty. The teacher watched closely, adding gentle harmonies, supporting the student without overpowering them. It was a delicate balance, a silent partnership that allowed the student's expression to shine. The music grew in richness and depth, the simple tune blossoming into a living, breathing peace that held the audience captive. As the student played, a wave of emotion passed through the hall. Some listeners closed their eyes, letting the melody wash over them. Others leaned forward, smiles touching their lips, feeling the sincerity behind each note. The music seemed to fill the room with warmth, creating a connection that went beyond words. It was as if the piano itself had a voice, speaking to each person individually. Carrying their hearts along with it, the student reached a section of the tune where they had discovered a long pause during rehearsals. They held the notes in the air, letting silence speak as much as the melody. The effect was powerful. The audience felt the space, the tension, the emotion, and responded with a quiet, almost reverent attention. The teacher's harmonies supported this moment perfectly, soft, almost imperceptible, yet adding an emotional layer that made the pause even more moving. Time seemed to stretch as the student played. The music was no longer just a tune. It had become a story, a reflection of their journey, a shared experience between performer and listeners. Each note carried a fragment of courage, hope, and honesty. The audience was drawn in, unaware of the hours of practice and dedication that had gone into each sound, yet feeling the full weight of the emotion as the final notes approached. The student allowed the melody to rise and fall gently, creating a sense of completion and fulfillment. The last chord lingered in the air, a soft resonance that seemed to settle in the hearts of everyone present. Silence followed for a moment, a quiet pause where the impact of the performance could be fully felt. Then, slowly, applause began. At first tentative, then growing, until it filled the room with warmth and admiration. The audience had been moved unexpectedly and profoundly by a melody that had started as a small, humble request. The student looked at the teacher, their eyes wide with amazement and relief. The teacher smiled, proud and moved, knowing that the journey had reached a remarkable moment. The simple tune had grown beyond its beginnings, creating an unforgettable experience for everyone present. People approached the student after the performance, offering words of praise, hugs, and heartfelt thanks. Some spoke about how the melody had touched them deeply, how it had reminded them of quiet moments of joy and hope in their own lives. The student listened, overwhelmed but grateful, realizing that the music had reached further than they had imagined. It was no longer just a tune. It was a shared feeling, a connection forged through honesty and emotion. The teacher stood back, watching quietly, feeling a sense of fulfillment that came from witnessing the student's success. It was more than just the applause. It was the recognition that the student had discovered their own voice, had learned to communicate through music, and had shared a piece of their heart with others. The impact of the small piano request had grown into something far greater than either of them could have predicted. After the event, the hall slowly emptied, leaving the piano alone in the soft glow of the evening light. The students stayed for a moment, running their fingers lightly over the keys, feeling the resonance of the performance linger. The teacher joined them, placing a gentle hand on their shoulder. "You did it," the teacher said softly. "This melody is no longer just yours. It belongs to everyone who heard it, and it will continue to live, carrying the feelings you put into it." The students smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I never imagined it could feel like this," they admitted. "More than I expected. That's the power of music," the teacher replied. "Even the smallest request, when nurtured with honesty and heart, can create something unforgettable." Together, they left the hall, the night air cool and calm around them. The streets were quiet, reflecting the soft glow of streetlights. The student walked with a lighter step, carrying the melody in their heart. Feeling the deep satisfaction of having shared a part of themselves with the world, the teacher walked beside them, quietly proud, knowing that this moment was only the beginning of many more discoveries, performances, and shared experiences to come. That night, both teacher and student reflected on the journey that had led to this performance. They thought about the small request that had started it all, the hours of practice, the moments of doubt, the quiet triumphs, and the unexpected beauty that had emerged. It was a reminder that sometimes the simplest ideas nurtured with care and emotion can create the most profound impact. the melody would stay with them, lingering in memory and in heart. A testament to the power of music to connect, to inspire, and to move. And though the event had ended, the story of the small piano request, transformed into an unforgettable musical masterpiece, was far from over. It had only just begun, carrying with it the promise of future performances, shared emotions, and the quiet magic of music that speaks when words cannot. After the event, life slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the impact of the performance lingered. The student found themselves walking through familiar streets with a quiet sense of pride, their mind replaying the melody and the reaction of the audience. Every small detail of the day seemed vivid: the smiles, the soft tears, the whispers of admiration. It was a powerful reminder of how a simple request, nurtured with dedication and honesty, could touch so many lives. The community hall once again became their sanctuary. Each evening, the student returned to the piano not just to practice, but to explore the music that had taken shape from that small request. The teacher was always there, offering guidance and encouragement, yet giving the students space to discover new depths in the melody. Together, they experimented with variations, finding nuances in tempo, dynamics, and emotion that made the piece feel alive and ever-changing. The student began to notice subtle changes within themselves as well. They felt a growing confidence, not just in their musical abilities, but in expressing their thoughts and emotions more openly. The piano had become a bridge between their inner world and the outside, allowing feelings that words could not fully capture to find a voice. This transformation was quiet, almost imperceptible at first, but with each practice session and every interaction with the music, it became more profound. Neighbors and friends who had attended the event often approached the student with kind words, expressing how much the performance had meant to them. Some spoke about moments in their own lives that the melody had reminded them of, while others simply thanked the student for sharing such a beautiful piece. Each comment reinforced the idea that the music had extended beyond the room, touching hearts and leaving an impression that could not easily be forgotten. The student reflected on these moments, realizing that the simple tune had grown into something far greater than they had ever imagined. What had started as a small, almost casual request had become a living story, one that continued to evolve with each note played. The melody was no longer just an arrangement of sounds. It was a reflection of courage, patience, and the quiet power of honest expression. One evening, while practicing a new variation, the student paused and looked at the teacher. "Do you think it's possible for music to change someone's day? Even just a little?" The teacher smiled warmly. "Absolutely. Music can reach places words cannot. It can soothe, inspire, or even give someone courage. What you play may seem small to you, but to others, it can be profound. You've already seen it happen." The student nodded thoughtfully, running their fingers gently over the keys. They could still feel the echoes of the performance, the warmth of the audience's response, and the quiet pride that came from sharing something meaningful. It was a reminder that small actions, when done with heart and sincerity, could create ripple effects far beyond what anyone might expect. As the weeks passed, the student and teacher continued to refine the melody, exploring new ideas and subtle enhancements. They experimented with soft introductions, gentle pauses, and variations that highlighted different emotions. Each practice session became a journey, a chance to discover hidden layers and deepen the emotional impact of the piece. The students' confidence grew steadily, and they began to see themselves not just as a learner, but as a creator, someone capable of shaping beauty and connecting with others through music. The teacher observed these changes with quiet satisfaction. They knew that the student had learned more than just how to play notes. They had learned about dedication, self-expression, and the courage to share something personal with the world. The journey of the small piano request had become a lesson in life, teaching the student about the impact of patience, care, and honesty. One afternoon, a local community organizer approached the student with an invitation to perform at another event. The student felt a surge of nervousness, but also excitement. They had grown since the first performance, and the idea of sharing the music again filled them with anticipation. The teacher encouraged them, reminding them to play from the heart and trust in their own expression. As the student prepared for this new opportunity, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They thought about the first timid request, the long hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the eventual triumph. They realized that every step had been important, that even the smallest efforts had contributed to the growth of the melody and of themselves. It was a lesson they would carry forward in all aspects of life, that sincerity, persistence, and heart could transform the simplest beginnings into something unforgettable. The students' practice sessions became more creative and joyful. They explored ways to incorporate subtle emotions, storytelling, and even improvisation. The piano became a canvas for their feelings, and the melody, once simple and straightforward, now carried a depth and richness that spoke to anyone who listened. The teacher guided them gently, offering suggestions and encouragement, but allowing the student to take ownership of the music. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and a shared love of expression. When the day of the new performance arrived, the student approached the piano with a calm sense of purpose. They thought back to the first small request, realizing how far the melody had traveled and how much it had grown. They understood that the audience would feel the honesty in their playing, and that alone was enough to make the performance meaningful. The teacher stood nearby, giving a reassuring nod, their presence a steady reminder of support and guidance. As the student began to play, the music filled the hall, weaving its way into the hearts of the listeners. Each note carried emotion, each pause created a sense of space, and the overall melody felt alive with life and feeling. The audience responded naturally, drawn into the story that the student was telling through the piano. Smiles appeared, tears welled in eyes, and silent awe filled the room. The melody, once a small request, had become a bridge between the performer and every person listening, connecting them through a shared experience of beauty and emotion. When the performance ended, the applause was heartfelt and enthusiastic. The student felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that their music had reached people in a meaningful way. They looked at the teacher, eyes shining with gratitude and pride, knowing that this journey had changed them forever. The teacher smiled, quietly proud of the student's growth, and of the music that had blossomed from a simple, sincere request. In the days that followed, the student continued to play, both in practice and in small community gatherings. The melody, once small and unassuming, had become a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of sincere expression. People remembered the performances, shared stories about how the music had touched them, and felt inspired to explore their own creative voices. The student had discovered that even the smallest beginnings, approached with heart and dedication, could leave a lasting impression. The teacher and student often reflected together on the journey. They spoke about the importance of persistence, honesty, and embracing challenges. They understood that the music was more than just a melody. It was a testament to growth, connection, and the quiet magic of shared experiences. Every note played, every variation explored, carried a reminder that even a small act could create something unforgettable. And so, the melody lived on, carried in the hearts of the audience, the student, and the teacher. It was a story of courage, expression, and the profound impact of sincerity. From a small piano request had grown a masterpiece that touched many lives, leaving behind an enduring memory of hope, beauty, and the quiet power of music to speak when words cannot. The journey, though it had reached a significant milestone, continued to inspire, reminding everyone that the simplest beginnings often hold the greatest potential for unforgettable moments.